Good afternoon. My name is Tandiwe, and today we are talking about inheritance and whether people are automatically entitled or whether it is a parent's decision to actually make a choice of who is likely to inherit. With us today is Vincent, my youngest son, and he wanted to discuss this topic. Over to you, Vincent.
Okay. No, I just thought a topic that you guys could discuss was we have a lot of things with sometimes situations where people feel like they're entitled in the sense of when the head of the family dies or when a parent dies, that the eldest son should be the one who inherits everything, or in the sense of just because of someone's ways of life, they're not longer determined to it. It's about kind of just making a decision on who actually gets that inheritance, or is it the intent of the parent who gets to choosing if the child should get that inheritance, or do they have to earn it?
Thank you. Maybe we'll start off with Tando. Tando, have you actually thought about this topic and have you got anything to add on?
Yes, on that part, Mina, I feel personally, one, it's the parents' right to decide because it's your hard-earned money and your legacy, whatever that you've built throughout your whole life. And secondly, you can't just say, because I'm the eldest or I'm the youngest male child, I'm automatically entitled to it. Because sometimes the parent is the one that should decide based on the fact that who does he or she feel will continue the legacy and keep this family standing. Because abanye to the eldest son does all this money and chow all the parents' money and leave nothing for the rest. There's no legacy behind. So there was no point of leaving that inheritance.
Thank you. No, do you want to contribute anything to the discussion?
I think inheritance is determined by the parent. So I think the parent, it all depends on how many children you have. You have to maybe write a will, or if there's no will, just spread it out, like to all the children. Even if there's the main executor, maybe the oldest child or whoever is in charge, or even if it's the middle child or the last child, but let it be spread amongst all of your children, not to say the oldest one inherits or the youngest one inherits, but also I don't think a parent can just give it to anyone. Then let your children benefit, even if, say, sometimes you might have abantwana that are irresponsible, but then give them their share accordingly.
Okay, before you go in, Vincent, I will just want everybody to sort of jump in. If I can go to Patty and then we'll go to Sky and then we can go back to Vincent. Patty, have you got any thoughts about the
Yeah, so quickly, I think entitlement, no one should be entitled to anything. The decision has to go to the person who owns what they want to do with what they've built. To me, it's very clear. I think the parents, well, I'm assuming that the parents would have given a lot to the children to raise them, and really this entitlement, I just don't agree with the entitlement part.
Okay, Scar. Okay, I think maybe Sky is a bit frozen at the moment, so I'll just jump in for now. And I'm sorry, did you hear what the question is?
Yes, I heard, yeah, but you can jump in because I'm just trying to think. I'm not sure exactly.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. That's all right. I will come to you, Vincent. But what I was actually thinking is some people, parents, will actually want to sort of have this autonomy, or making the decision on what goes to who. But or sometimes some parents will threaten, oh, I'll give my money to charity and all that, but not thinking that they themselves, some people inherit from their own parents, and then they get that it's supposed to go to a bloodline, you know, continue with the bloodline. But when it's on you, you now try to pretend that it was all about you and you are the one who's going to decide, oh, I might actually just give it to charity and not all that kind of talk. So sometimes I think you are entitled to inherit because it is your right, because that person might have got it from the bloodline, so it has to remain with them.
Okay.
Family.
Okay, jump in, Vincent, before if Skabopo has thought of anything.
I just feel like okay, that's a fair point. I get where you're coming from with that situation, but I don't agree when you say it has to stay in the bloodline, because what if in a situation where that bloodline, no one is worthy of that, but because someone thinks it's their blood, that's when it goes into entitlement. Then that's when it happens with the entitlement. It's like, you can't just say because someone's born, they've got your blood, that you have to inherit that. You have to give them something to them when they pass on. They have to earn it, in my eyes, in the sense of, you can't just go because you're my blood, you have that right. Or if I create a business, if I start a business up, I have to give that to my child, or I have to give that to my nephew or niece or something. It has to be earned, I believe, in the sense of that's when it happens. Your inheritance, you can't just gain it. You have to earn that right. You have to show that you're worthy of that right, because you can't just go, oh no, I've decided I'm going to only give it to a relative of mine. It has to be passed on within the family. That's where where you kind of have that difficult situation where you have to kind of see where you are in that moment.
Thank you. Have you thought of anything, Skabopo?
Yes, now I want to come in and say, okay, seeing that as Black people, in our culture dictates that there's a certain way that it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be passed on through the bloodline. But obviously nowadays, in modern times, there's systems that have been put in place, like wills, and maybe where someone else can decide to share it maybe into a company, like what our father has done and all that. You know, there's new systems that can be put into play. But according to our culture, people are really supposed to be passed on in terms of bloodline. You know, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Okay, thank you. I think you do. Does anybody else have anything further to contribute? Let's go to Noah first before we come to you, Scott.
Okay, maybe in a way, I just want to expand this a little bit and find out exactly what we're talking about when we talk inheritance. We've got grown-up children that are not even married, but that are making it in life. And say, for example, my son is not yet married. He lives by himself. He's made it in life. He's got whatever, the little bits that he has. Who gets that? If he did not say so and so must inherit that, because he's got brothers and sisters, but now that he's passed on, what happens to whatever is inheritance from him?
Tando, do you want to jump in?
Okay, what I'm going to say is that rightfully, obviously, if your child is passed on, you as the parent have the responsibility to take over whatever was his, just as now as you are the parent. If you pass on not leaving any will, that child of yours is what automatically they are the ones who are going to inherit it, unless someone comes there and disputes that for whatever reason.
Have you got anything? This topic seems to be a little bit stuck up, but have you got any more to add on to the topic?
No, I'm just trying to think what it is that maybe we're trying to capture here.
Because
I'm drawing a blank, sorry.
Oh, fair, that's fair. Why are you laughing, Vincent? Go on, contribute, say what your piece.
No, but okay, Maluma, just to answer your question earlier, is culture always right? Is culture always the way only?
Culture is culture.
So,
Culture is what we create every day.
Yeah, but can sometimes a culture, a way of thinking, or the way something is decided, can that not sometimes be wrong?
It is.
100%.
Kufana, I will say on that, it's just like, for example, I need to, as Black people, it has become a norm on that topic that we avoided today. It's become a norm. It's something that someone started doing, and then it kept on, the pattern was copied. So that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily correct. It's just whatever and felt this is right and up that way. And that's how we've just known it to be done. And that's it. It doesn't mean it can't be questioned or changed.
Exactly.
Suppose, go on, Pat, go on.
No, I was going to say, I agree with that. I think we get stuck. I think sometimes people use culture when they cannot defend what they're saying, right? So they will say, well, in our culture, this is how we do it. But why do we do it? Because ultimately in life, you want to enter a joyful state, and entering that joyful state is by continuously refining what you believe to be, the conditioning. So if, for instance, I don't know, we can use something as simple as slavery. For some people, that was a great thing. But then as you grow, you're like, well, that doesn't work. How do we make it? And you continuously improve. So some of these things in the culture, they may not actually serve us. They may be done so that they serve other people. But when you get to a point where you realize, hey, this is not serving everybody, then we create a new culture. We add on to that culture. We pull out what doesn't work.
I suppose if you're thinking of culture is usually decisions that were made by other people, like you and I. We can create a new reality, a new culture from now, and then that would be, sometimes our cultures sit within maybe a tribe, it sits within a community. It's not usually just universal. Different sectors or different communities have got different ways of looking at things, and sometimes what people deem as culture, like whether it was Patty who said, it is because you can't really make a valid argument. So you just defer to, oh, this is how we've always done it. But is it the right way of doing it? Or is there a better way of actually looking at this? Say, for instance, I think in our culture, I might be wrong on this, the firstborn son is the main maybe person. When an elder passes, this all goes to the elder son. If you are discussing the topic with an older son, they would most probably, because it works to their advantage, they won't actually see the argument, it's in entirety. Because sometimes if you have got maybe siblings and everyone contributes to that whole household, but at the end, one person who is going to be given that authority to sort of be the person who's responsible for sort of divvying up whatever inheritance is.
And really at the core of it, if we look at it, we might find out that the reason why it was the oldest son, it was simple, is that, they believe that if you're 20 and your siblings are like 10, you have better decision making without really any backing. So we should always explain why that culture is valid. And so that as we carry it through, if you explain to me why this is valid and I see value in it, then I'm more likely to pass it on to the next generation and to the next generation. But a lot of this culture, and especially for us, people that have been colonized, what we may think is culture, it may also be colonization, control. We don't know. So we have to look, every time, reevaluate, look at it. What does it mean? Like, does it actually serve all of us? Because ultimately we want to serve everybody.
Does anyone else, no, do you want to jump in? No? Tando, do you want to jump in?
I mean, in my sum up or in my closing, I feel like we can say it's the parent's decision at the end of the day. Now, as a parent, when you are making those decisions, it's best to look at all the things involved, look at all the dynamics. Don't just decide, okay, when you are the oldest, you take over. You can, for example, let's say you have a business, the eldest has no business knowledge or business sense whatsoever, and the youngest has a successful business running. He has maybe a business degree or whatever. So obviously, being a parent, the smart decision will be the last born other than the firstborn. So what I'm saying is look at the dynamics and look at the people involved and assess the situation and the times. So you can't just make a decision as in just because that's how it is. Look at everything involved before you make the decision.
Okay, thank you. Njabulo, do you want to add on a little bit
I
more?
just feel like it all goes back to the choices of the parents. I feel like it doesn't have to be like inheriting something to somebody because of their family, their bloodline, or because you're trying to carry on something. It's your choice, because majority of the time, sometimes when someone inherits something, they can either, what's it called, mess it up and not work with it and not work and actually prosper with it. So, or someone gets something and then they succeed with that thing. Then that person has the choice to decide who they pass that on to. Is it a family member? Is it someone close to them? Is it someone they feel they're deserving? And that's what I'm coming back to it when it's saying is, it's a choice of the person who they're passing that over to. It's this thing where people feel like they have to pass it over to people who are their relative or the eldest son or the eldest daughter or the eldest child. I'm kind of that in that moment where I personally feel like it has to be the choice of whoever that
Well-
person they want to pass it over to.
But now listen, we're talking death here. The parent dies, then maybe they didn't plan it. If they don't have a will, what happens then?
If they don't have the will, then that situation, then it has to be divided amongst everyone then
Equally.
Well,
equally.
but the rules that they've implemented,
But
at least
who-
I can speak
Who
from
executes,
Canada.
who leads?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you an
So-
example. Sorry to interrupt you, Manipati, but I'll give you an example.
No
Manu.
worries.
If you say to me in a situation, let's say somebody, head of the family is a wealthy person, a wealthy individual, right? It's their
Mhm.
responsibility to obviously advise everybody who their inheritance goes to. Obviously, if certain circumstances happen and they die and you can't help it, in that situation, then, in my personal opinion, that needs to be divided amongst the family, because it's their responsibility to have chosen somebody that they pass over this information to. But if things don't, if it doesn't play out like that, obviously things might not play out like that. Then that needs to be divided amongst the family, everybody, divided equally amongst their family in that situation. But what I'm trying to get at is, it's that decision of that individual person. It shouldn't be passed over to like the eldest, or if a culture determines it has to go to the eldest son or the eldest child. That does that for me. No, I personally feel like it should be going to whoever they decide they want to give it to.
Okay.
So in the absence of a decision, you think it should be equally divided?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
what
not
about in
even
terms of maybe let's say now the queen passes away.
Mhm.
Who's next in
did.
line? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Who there has to be someone that's automatically next in line, or maybe the king of the Zulus passes away. There's someone that's next in line. You understand?
Yes.
Can't just say
And that's
Well,
what I'm trying to
I-
say. A king is responsible to make sure that he passes on. You have to think of your future. Yes, or there have to be a plan of place. That's fine, but you have to have a chosen one who's next. You make a decision. Like if you're a wealthy individual, you have to make a decision on who am I
Well-
going to pass my information over to? But if you don't, then in a sense of if the queen dies, then it has to be, that's a different situation. I can't compare that one, because that's like running a kingdom. It's a bit different. You have to have a decision and heir.
Say what I'm actually thinking is from the way you are saying. Are you saying that you can just inherit from your parents, right? And then all of a sudden, maybe you inherit an empire, like say, for instance, Harold. It comes from Mohammed Al Fayed or whoever, right? It comes directly to his son, but then he just decides to give it to John.
That's a bit of
Okay.
that's a bit of a different situation, because that's a royalty. That's like I'm
No,
talking about
these
something
are not
else.
royal people. I'm just
Huh?
talking about any rich person, right? All of a
Right.
sudden, say maybe somebody who's rich here, right? He
Yeah.
inherits from his own family, right?
Okay.
He's got maybe a castle, like somebody who's got a castle, and then all of a sudden he falls in love with me, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's got children, but then he just gives everything to me. Is that fair?
That's his choice. It might not be.
Tando, are
It might
you
not be.
on
We're
board?
not talking about. We're not talking about fairness here. We're not talking about fairness. We're talking about the choice of who they inherit. It's that person's choice.
Okay, what do you want to say, Tando? I saw you shaking your head.
I say in that matter, usually, I mean, there's those things that you call a family inheritance. This thing belongs in the family. In that state, even when you get it, it will be stated that this stays in the family. You cannot, even if whoever you decide to give it to, it must still be in the family. So in that regard, you can't just take something that belongs to the Ndlovu family and then suddenly tomorrow you decide when it belongs to the Kigabas just because you decided so. The great-grandfathers and the forefathers before you worked hard for that and stated it stays in the family.
But I think Vincent's argument sort of is away from that you are free to actually give to whoever you want to give to, which I also disagree with, because I think if it belongs to my family, it has to remain in my family.
But what if someone in your family, no one in your family is worthy of it?
Who
Well,
makes you?
here's the thing.
Who left with that decision decide who is worthy or who is not, when the people who initially owned this thing actually decided with me now, I want this. It's like a family ring, those family heirloom things. It stays in the family. The original owner stated that. So who are you to go and change those rules?
Because
Here's my
I'm the
question for you,
Wait,
Tando.
just wait.
What if all the people are dead from the family?
Yeah, but
You
the
guys
rules
watch?
were set already.
Yeah, so there's no more Gucci's person standing.
No, are you
Nokila,
actually
you're
trying
on
to
mute.
talk because you're mute?
Okay, what I was saying, are we now talking royal or we are just talking furniture? Are we talking royalty now that it's something that came through the bloodline, or am I talking what I have? Who do I leave it?
I believe.
I'm saying, sorry, Mum, because I'm saying, Mum Dala, when your stuff, because Malumas want to start saying the bloodline of a kingdom or something. That's different, that royalty for me. But when the Mum Dala.
No, okay, can I just jump in? No, say for instance, if ubaba from Umajoy, Umapegapay, no, ubabake, right?
Ever.
Yeah, ubabake, he got something, right? That he got because of his bloodline, and that thing went to Dalaza. Then Dalaza, all of a sudden, it still belongs, because the question is, because I think with Africans, it usually goes to male. And sometimes if there is no male, maybe it should go to the females, kind of thing. Does that logic follow, or it doesn't follow?
It usually goes to the female. It also, if there's no male, it's passed on to the females.
It should go to
but the problem with the females, some of the people complaining it now, the female goes and gets married. Now they start having issues with you are marrying away with our things that belong to this family. So that's why usually they don't give it to the females.
Okay, I had missed a lot because I thought we were talking like a general inheritance. I didn't realize we were talking something that you got from someone. But say, for example, if I leave something to my children, I wouldn't leave it to one child. I've got 2 kids. I cannot leave it to one child.
Say for argument's sake, yes. You live, say when I'm at your house, you leave it to Usane Lokumbu, right? And then Usane Lokumbu, I would argue that your grandchildren are entitled to that. They don't have to earn it. Your grandchildren, because they got it from you. It isn't about maybe royalty, but it is about.
I disagree. I disagree. Abazukulu bami, they are not entitled.
Exactly. Nami.
They're not entitled to my to what I left to my kids. Their parents.
Your kids are.
Huh?
Correct.
But your kids are entitled.
My kids, yes. They are entitled.
If you don't write your will, if you don't write
So
your will,
here's what Richard is saying. Okay, great discuss, sorry.
I'm saying if you die without a will, they are entitled, right? That's what I wanted to.
My children. Yes.
So
Yeah.
if they're
But
entitled,
Nakumblane,
who runs it now? There's a boy and a girl. There's the older one
This
and the
is
younger
the
one.
thing. This is why
But
I was asking if are we talking
equally.
reality or we are
No, now,
talking.
right now, we're talking about you.
Ask that question again.
If you die without a will,
Mhm.
you have 2 kids. Are they entitled? Yes, you
Yes.
say.
Mhm.
So now, as they're entitled, who runs the show? The older one or the young?
But if you say entitled, what is it that they are entitled to? Because maybe I might have just a house. They are both entitled to the house. But who runs the house? The house
Yes.
is for them to live in there. They
But
get,
the
question
girl
is,
is gonna get married and go away.
yeah. But when things don't work out, she's got a home.
Yes.
But who runs that home?
Whoever will be staying in it.
So
Oh,
now,
and
then
also,
why the boy
are
now
we-
brings his wife and stays with the wife there? Can the
Then
younger
my
Are we
girl
boss
now
is
come
still
back when
entitled to
things
go
go
back
bad and
home.
say it's her home?
You
Okay,
will say,
so
what if
there's a
they
wife
sell
there
it
now.
and split the money? What if they sell it and split the money as down payment?
Yeah.
For each their own family
on
houses?
their own properties. It all depends on what they agree on when I'm gone. The two of them.
What if they can't agree?
Then I'm not there. I don't know what's gonna happen.
So now that's what we're discussing. Who runs that show?
There's no one who
There's
runs
no
the
one.
People, 50
They
people.
both run the show.
if I can sort of try and go back to what I think Upat was trying to answer initially, is if you actually inherit from your parents, if this is supposed to belong, like if I actually leave Unjabulo and Uton something, Mina, as the person, although I'm no longer there, I believe this is not supposed to Unjabule Ngakonyo says Nigerian Tombiak. This belongs to my children, my grandchildren, and it should remain within the bloodline.
But I think that has to be stated ahead of time.
Exactly.
It has to remain in the family. Because if you leave it to somebody, they are entitled to do whatever they want with that house.
And also,
You can't
Patty,
just assume.
on that note, Patty, if abantwana abayi-2 and one of them doesn't have kids at all, omunye abe labantwana abayi-10. So what happens to this one ongazange abe labantwana? So those grandchildren are just gonna come here and disturb the peace of this one ongazalanga.
Yes.
You see? Then it's not fair.
Here's what it is, Nakublani. So you have these 2 children. If they take the house together and they both own 50% of it, one goes off, gets married, never has children, maybe gets divorced, comes back. The other one gets married, has children, but still remains in the house and maybe dies. The aunt is back, there's 10 kids in the house. That's just what it is. It's either they sell the whole place, then the 10 people divide half, and then she takes their own half and goes to live somewhere else.
Yes.
So keeping it together, like we are assuming that they will just take the house and manage the house. They don't have to.
Yes.
They can sell it, take the money, go buy their own houses, or they can keep it in the family with some rules. But it's anybody's guess how that's going to play out. If it's not laid out by the owner, who is in charge of saying this is what we're going to do?
Okay. Does anybody else have anything else to add to the topic?
No, I just feel like the thing is, when it goes back to what I mean, I get that you guys all feel like, I don't know, maybe some people feeling differently, but I feel like, Mum, if what you work for in your entire life, Mum, what you've done for this entire life, if I am living a life that doesn't please you, or you don't want to, or you're not happy with it, or something, let's say I believe in a completely different beliefs to you, Mum, I don't feel like just because I am your son that I should be given that right to have what's yours. You have that choice, Mum. Here we go. No, I'm not listening. Just listening to saying how it is. It's your choice to make a decision who you give your inheritance to, who you leave things to. It's your choice. Ideally, in an ideal world, I'd love to obviously inherit those things, but it's your choice.
Honestly,
who you
no
give
one
it to.
can go against the will,
Exactly. So
But
that's what I'm
what
trying to
if
say.
there's no
But
will?
people-
What happens?
If there's no will, then that's what I'm trying to get at. It needs to be split out then. That's what I'm trying to get at. You split it out fairly.
On you,
But
Jax, I'm
it's-
in agreement on you. This is personal.
But what I'm trying to get at is, that's what I'm trying to say is, people feel like they have to give their inheritance, like mum, dad, what she's saying right now, that yes, you would want to leave your children that your inheritance, what you've worked for. But what if you go, no, because a child great raising up, if their parent is very, very wealthy and the child is growing up feeling that, oh, I'm going, when she dies, she's gonna leave me, or when he dies, he's gonna leave me because I'm entitled, I'm her child. Because I've heard that a word a couple of times, people say the child is entitled to the inheritance of the parent. I don't believe that. I feel like it's all in the choice of the parent. The parent gets to choose who they want to give their things to. If that parent doesn't want to give that child, then so be it. That's what I'm just saying. Mom, I know you're shaking, you're laughing your head off, you're thinking.
I think
but
that's a
the
good
choice-
idea.
That's the choice of the parent. It's
You
the
are
choice
right,
of-
my son. You are very right indeed. I think you are on point there. You are definitely on
It's
point.
the
there.
choice. No, but I'm just being. I don't know. I don't know what you think to that, Mum, Dad. I don't know. You because I can see you not feeling that you're not agreeing to that.
For me,
Yeah.
no, Mina, I am in agreement. If like you are saying, Jabulo, there should be a will. There should be somewhere where your mom says, I'm splitting this, I'm giving this to so and so. But
Exactly.
there's sometimes where a parent just dies and then he didn't make a decision. Then you guys, the remaining people, should split that according to numbers. But then what I'm in disagreement with is that between when
What do you want for breakfast? I'm gonna have porridge.
children and those children are
For me?
entitled to your mother's estate. I'm in disagreement of that.
Oh yeah, I agree with you as well. There, I completely agree with you there. That just because I have children, that they inherit, they
They're
should.
not
If my
entitled to your mom's estate.
Exactly. I completely agree with that as well. But if a situation arises where, let's say, something will happen and no will was left, I feel like it should be divided amongst the children. It should be divided amongst the family in that sense. Not this where it goes, or the eldest child or the eldest born, or it's whoever is the one who the parent chose to leave everything to. So let's just say something like unfortunate were to happen to the head of the family. That head of the family would have had in place who they want to leave. If they want to leave it to their grandchild and maybe pass all their children, so be it. That's who they've chosen to leave those things to. It's
But in
whoever that person.
In that instance, Jabulo, it might happen that, say, your mom had girl children and
Yeah.
then there's no boy. And then she decides that, oh, my firstborn child has had a boy child or has had, even if it's a girl child, but I choose to give my grandchild. If she
Yeah.
chooses to give her grandchild, then that's fine.
Yeah,
Because now
I
she's got
completely
two
agree with
girls
that.
that are gonna get married and go and live with other people that will gonna belong somewhere else. Then she
I
chooses.
completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I
But
completely agree with that.
now, my choice is my kids right now as I stand here.
But what I'm saying is what the world sometimes has, and some cultures have, is they believe that it should go to the eldest son or the eldest child, or even the family member, that it has to stay in the bloodline. I personally feel like it needs to be the choice of whoever the person they inherit and they're leaving those things to. It's whoever they want to leave it to. It's not someone that, oh, because I'm entitled because I am her child, or I'm entitled because I'm related to my grandfather or grandmother. I'm entitled to that. No, it's who.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I hear you, Njabulo, and I think I am in agreement with you on that one. Definitely. Let's just let's just synopsis. Everybody, just do your closing. I'll seal the recording, and I was thinking maybe we can just do a little bit more housekeeping. I'll start with Tando. Tando, have you got anything to sort of?
No, nothing much, but I think I will agree with the fact that it's the parents' discretion. The parents should decide. It's, after all, it's your hard-earned money or hard-earned whatever that you worked hard for. No one else can do that. Or you can't just say this one must take it just because as they are the eldest or the youngest. The parents should decide based on whatever that they feel is right, because after all, it's your belongings.
Would it make a difference if you actually inherited it yourself?
Yeah, definitely. There's something else at play there. I feel that if that's something that was inherited, there must be some terms and conditions that were stipulated there when that was also being given to you. Hence, now when you are passing it on, you should apply whatever was stated when it was given to you as well.
But if, say, for instance, there was no will and things were split up, but you did get it from maybe your parents, does that make a difference?
Or
Or-
if they were split up, whatever was given to me is mine. So I have the right to decide. But if it's something that belongs to other people, but split up, whatever is split up, it's my right to decide what I do with it.
Thank you. Skapopo?
Yeah, I think the modern way has improved things in the sense of coming up with wills and all that. But if there was no will, I think it's only fair that everyone gets an equal share of whatever is left in there. But the wiser choice will be to try and maintain what the parent left and try to maintain it and make sure that it goes on to the next generation. But if people decide maybe they want to take whatever belongs to them, maybe whatever their cut is, and do something with it, it's up to them. But that's why it's important to have a will. If there's no will, then let everyone get an equal share.
Thank you. I'll go to no.
I think AMA wills is the way to go with terms and conditions, like Utando said, because sometimes you might find that a parent lives a house, just one house, a 2 or 3 bedroom house with 10 children. And maybe in that, on his departure there, he just leaves maybe 1 or 2 children living in that house. And then that house, we are all entitled to it. 10 people are like entitled to that house. It's their inheritance. And in the middle of those 10 children, there's one who says he wants his share and he wants out. And the only person who can afford to buy that house, maybe it's just the one person, then that will be a problem. So it's good to have a will with terms and conditions that I'm leaving this house. It should not be sold. It should stay here. And whoever has got problems must come and live here. Because we have got people that will, like, especially our brothers, one will get married, stay there with his wife. And then when we've come there as girls, the wife tells us that, no, this is my house. And he chooses to live with her relatives there. When I come there, I don't have a place to sleep. This inheritance thing, it's a problem. I don't know how, but a will should be put in place. This should be a lesson that there should be terms and conditions to these things.
Thank you. Patty?
Yeah, I agree with most of the comments that are made, but I think it's too specific about what would happen, and maybe a little bit about, you know, having problems and having to have a place to stay. But I think ultimately, if you have a lot to leave behind, you should have people that are capable of taking care of themselves, is what I'm saying. And also, I think, like, I agree with Duska, when if there is no will or any description of what is to happen, then you just split it accordingly, like fairly across the board. But then where do you cut off? Like, it's only your children. What if you were helped by your brothers and your sisters? Then how far do you spread that? And if you spread it, like, another thing, if you spread it outside, or even not even outside the children, what if people dispute it and say, hey, let's say you live in a house that is not contested, and then your brother says, hey, I also helped you with this house. Like, why am I not part of the will, right? Or all those little things. I think there is a lot that we assume about this inheritance in the way we see it. But I think ultimately the idea, the best is to have a say in how things will play out when you're no longer there.
I think this topic, we should revisit it. I think we've just touched a bit. I think we should revisit this topic again. Let's go back and look deeper into it, and then come back and revisit another time.
That's fine.
Vincent.
I think most probable, yeah, you are right. It was sort of spare of the moment, and we didn't get a chance to fully reflect on it. So yeah, I checked that on board. Maybe in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, we can revisit the topic if we can get the same people, and then we can sort of revisit our thoughts. Appreciate
Practice at 10
that. Yeah,
till like 11, and then we'll go to the game.
Jax,
How can you be so tired? You could have gone to bed like early last night.
Who's that?
It's Duncan. uh, no, I just want to kind of say, yeah, well, like Maluma said, it's one of those type of topics you kind of have to think about, because it is, you could just say you need a will. You could just say, to simplify it, you could just say you need a will. But I think it's more than just saying you need a will. You need to kind of have a place in the moment. It's always discretionary in the sense of what that person wants to leave to the person. It always on the choice of that individual person, what they want to do with what they pass on to their family. Even if it is their family member, it could be somebody else they want to pass those things to. So it's all in the discretion of that individual person, just to kind of close it off for me personally. But it's been fun.
I appreciate you attending, Vincent. Thank you very much. Could you stay, please? I will seal the recording. Could you stay? Do you mind?
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
How long are we gonna take? from
Bonita
now?
Kanele, Wuti, could you seal, just seal and then ask us outside, because that goes in the record.